So in many industries, like China is catching up with the leading edge. And in some industries, China even leading, even in cars and 5Gs, batteries, solar energies. Now even in the AI, JAI, China become one of the players.
In 2025, wars are no longer fought with tanks or troops. They're fought with semiconductors, satellites, and lines of code. Every nation wants power. But power today isn't land, it's data, and no country understands that better than China. While the West was distracted by social media and streaming wars, China was quietly building something else. A new kind of internet, a parallel system of technology, infrastructure, and influence that could one day replace the one we all use. This isn't a Cold War, it's a code war, and it's already here. In the early 2000s, the internet looked like a victory for the West. America had Google, Facebook, Amazon, Apple. The web was open, decentralized, and powered by Silicon Valley's ideals of freedom and innovation. China, meanwhile, was playing catch-up. Its internet was tightly controlled, slow, and censored. Most Western experts laughed. They thought the Great Firewall would isolate China forever. They were wrong. Because behind that firewall, China built something extraordinary, a self-contained digital ecosystem, one that didn't need the West at all. While the world posted selfies on Instagram, China created WeChat, a single app for messaging, shopping, banking, even paying taxes. While Americans used credit cards, China leapfrogged straight to mobile payments through Alipay. And while Silicon Valley fought over ad clicks, China built infrastructure, 5G networks, data centers, and factories to make sure the future ran on its hardware. By 2020, that quiet strategy had paid off. In a world addicted to speed and connectivity, China became the backbone. Huawei laid 70% of Africa's mobile networks. ZTE built internet backbones across Asia and Latin America. China's Beidou satellites now rival GPS, providing global positioning without US control. The result? More than half the world's internet traffic touches Chinese technology somewhere along the way. And that's no accident. Because while the West built apps, China built the rails of the digital world. But this wasn't just about business, it was about control. In 2015, Beijing launched Made in China 2025, a 10-year plan to dominate high-tech manufacturing, robotics, and artificial intelligence. At the heart of that plan was one belief: whoever controls the next internet controls the next century. That next internet isn't just websites and social media. It's an entire digital nervous system connecting everything: cars, factories, cities, and currencies. And China wants to be its architect. When 5G arrived, most countries saw faster download speeds. China saw something else: a way to rewire global communication. Huawei's 5G technology became the cheapest, fastest option for dozens of nations. But with it came dependence. Once you build a country's network, you don't just provide service, you own the foundation. Western intelligence agencies warned that China could use this infrastructure for surveillance, espionage, or even digital coercion. Beijing denied it. But the message was clear: control the network, and you control the flow of information. By 2022, Huawei had built over 1,500 5G networks worldwide. America, realizing too late, began ripping out Chinese hardware at an estimated cost of $60 billion. It wasn't just paranoia. It was a new kind of deterrence. Instead of missiles, the leverage was modems. Then came chips, semiconductors, the invisible engines behind everything from smartphones to supercomputers. For decades, the US dominated chip design. Taiwan manufactured them. China bought them. But after US sanctions in 2019 crippled Huawei's access to advanced chips, China made a decision. It would never be dependent again. Beijing poured more than $150 billion into domestic chip development. By 2024, its national champion, SMIC, had produced its first 7nm chips, or ETOL, still behind Taiwan's TSMC, but closing fast. The chip race isn't just about phones. It's about AI, autonomous weapons, quantum computing, everything that defines power in the 21st century. And it's not just a race, it's an arms race made of silicon. Meanwhile, in the background, a quiet digital empire was expanding. Through the Digital Silk Road, an extension of its Belt and Road Initiative, China began exporting not just railways and ports, but servers, fiber cables, and surveillance systems. In Pakistan, Chinese firms built 5G towers. In Kenya, they installed facial recognition street cameras. In Laos, they financed smart city control rooms powered by AI analytics. Each project connected another nation to Beijing's technology stack, and sometimes its values. Because when you import Chinese hardware, you often import Chinese software. And when you import Chinese software, you import Chinese data policies. The West calls it digital authoritarianism. Beijing calls it technological sovereignty. Either way, it's working. Today, more than 80 countries use Chinese surveillance tech. Some use it to reduce crime. Others use it to control dissent. The line between safety and surveillance has blurred, and China wrote the code. Inside China, that system is fully realized. Hundreds of millions of cameras track movement in real time. AI algorithms flag suspicious behavior. Citizens are scored based on financial trustworthiness, social behavior, even online comments. The result is efficiency and obedience. But China's ambitions don't stop at its borders. In 2020, the Chinese government submitted a proposal to the United Nations called New IP, a plan to replace the open internet protocols created by the West with a more centralized, controllable version. Under this system, every device could have a government-assigned ID, and authorities could shut off users or websites instantly. Critics called it the end of internet freedom. China called it modernization. And quietly, dozens of developing countries supported it. For them, the Western internet, dominated by American corporations and English-language media, felt foreign and unfair. China offered something different: control, stability, and infrastructure at a discount. Meanwhile, the US was losing moral authority. For decades, it had preached digital freedom, while companies like Facebook and Google harvested global data for profit. It criticized China's surveillance while selling its own spyware to allies. When Edward Snowden exposed US mass surveillance, the credibility of open internet ideals collapsed. To many countries, the choice between Washington and Beijing isn't about freedom versus control. It's about who offers better terms. And lately, Beijing has been offering better deals. In Africa, Chinese-built data centers now store government information. In Latin America, Chinese companies dominate cloud computing contracts. In the Middle East, Huawei runs entire smart city platforms. In each case, China gains what it values most: data, the oil of the 21st century. Every byte feeding its AI systems, training its algorithms, strengthening its global edge. This is the heart of China's silent tech war. It doesn't conquer territories. It connects them and then collects from them. But the West isn't staying silent either. In 2022, the US launched the CHIPS and Science Act, pledging $280 billion to rebuild domestic semiconductor production. It pressured allies to block chip exports to China. The Netherlands banned sales of lithography machines. Japan restricted high-end semiconductor tools. Even Taiwan, the crown jewel of chipmaking, tightened controls on what it could ship to the mainland. Washington calls it de-risking. Beijing calls it technological containment. The new Iron Curtain isn't made of concrete, it's made of code, but cutting China off only made it more determined. When the US banned Nvidia's top AI chips, China didn't stop training AI models, it simply made its own. When Western cloud services left, China launched Baidu Cloud, Alibaba Cloud, and Tencent Cloud, now among the largest in the world. And when Silicon Valley chased profits through advertising, China poured billions into research. Quantum networks, photonic chips, and neural processing units designed for the next internet. While the West argued about regulation, China engineered replacement after replacement. That's the real meaning of the silent war. No headlines, no explosions, just standards, patents, and infrastructure slowly shifting global gravity. China now leads the world in 5G patents. It dominates global drone production. It controls 80% of rare earth mineral refining, crucial for batteries and chips. And its companies, like BYD and CATL, now define the future of electric mobility. Every cable, sensor, and chipset becomes another strand in the web. A web not just made in China, but owned by China. For decades, America's dominance came from creating the platforms the world couldn't live without. Google for information, Visa for payments, Apple for devices, AWS for cloud computing. Now, China is doing the same, but at the level of infrastructure. If the West built the internet, China is building the metanet, a controlled, programmable layer beneath everything, from smart grids to digital currencies. And at the center of it sits the Digital Yuan. Unlike Bitcoin or PayPal, the Digital Yuan isn't just money, it's a surveillance tool. Issued directly by the People's Bank of China, every transaction is traceable, programmable, and revocable. Spend too much on travel, the system could limit your spending. Protest? Your wallet could freeze. Loyalty? Rewarded. Dissent? Debited. But it's also efficient. Cross-border payments settle in seconds. Sanctions become irrelevant. And that's why other countries are watching closely. Nigeria, Russia, Brazil, Saudi Arabia, each exploring digital currencies modeled on Beijing's system. It's not just financial innovation. It's the blueprint for a world where the state doesn't just regulate money. It is money. If this sounds dystopian, it's also genius. Because while Western democracies debate privacy, China exports certainty. A functioning, predictable digital system. One that promises prosperity in exchange for compliance. And in a volatile world, compliance is becoming popular. Still, China's path isn't guaranteed. It faces economic slowdown, youth unemployment, and internal dissent. Tech giants like Alibaba and Tencent were reined in by Beijing itself, signaling the state's fear of any power it doesn't control. Yet even that is part of the strategy. In China's model, innovation serves the state, not the other way around. Where Silicon Valley trusts markets, Beijing trusts management. And in a world losing faith in free markets, that discipline suddenly looks efficient. The stakes of this silent war go far beyond technology, because whoever builds the next internet will write its rules. If it's the West, we get an open web, chaotic, messy, but free. If it's China, we get a managed web, orderly, efficient, but watched. The choice isn't between Google and Huawei. It's between freedom and control. And every nation is quietly deciding. Already, the split is happening. One internet, two architectures. One powered by open protocols, the other by centralized standards. One led by Silicon Valley, the other by Beijing. Soon, the question won't be whether you have Wi-Fi, but whose Wi-Fi you're on. In the end, China's silent tech war isn't about domination, it's about design. Because whoever designs the system defines reality. And while the West built the first internet, China is building the next one. A digital world where borders are firewalls, freedom is bandwidth, and power is measured in data, not democracy. The world isn't waiting for the future anymore. It's being uploaded, one connection at a time.